The auction house on Station Meridian was packed shoulder to shoulder with alien traders. The air smelled strange, a mix of chemicals and exotic scents that Lily Hayes couldn't quite place. She clutched her student datapad tighter, feeling completely out of place among the crowd of merchants who knew exactly what they were doing. Holographic displays floated above the arena floor, showing off creatures from worlds Lily had only read about in textbooks. Each time a new animal was brought out, the stats appeared in glowing letters. Height, weight, speed ratings, genetic purity scores. The alien merchants would lean forward, their various eyes gleaming with interest, hands already reaching for their bidding devices. Lily was supposed to be taking notes. Her agricultural colony had sent her here to learn how the big traders operated, to see what kind of livestock techniques the galaxy used. But mostly she just felt lost. Everything moved so fast. Creatures were brought out, bid on, sold, and removed before she could even process what she was looking at. The auctioneer was a tall, thin alien with too many arms. He spoke through a translator that made his voice sound smooth and professional. He knew how to work the crowd, knew exactly when to pause for effect, when to push for higher bids. Then everything changed. Lot 847 was led into the arena by two handlers who looked like they didn't want to touch the creature they were guiding. The moment Lily saw it, her breath caught. It was a Valkyran steed. She'd seen pictures of them before, magnificent animals that glowed with natural light, their bodies built for speed and grace. But this one looked nothing like those images. The steed stumbled as it entered, its hooves scraping against the metal floor. Its coat hung loose on a frame that had once been powerful but was now just thin and tired. Where there should have been glowing patterns dancing across its skin, there was only dull gray. The creature's legs shook with each step, and its eyes stared straight ahead at nothing, completely empty. Lily felt something twist painfully in her chest. Zenith, the auctioneer announced, and even he couldn't hide the disappointment in his voice. Age 47 standard years. Former champion of the Valkyran racing circuits in his youth. Starting bid at 500 credits. Nobody moved. The arena, which had been buzzing with excited chatter just moments before, fell completely silent. Lily looked around and saw alien faces turning away, already losing interest. Some were checking their datapads for information about the next lot. 400 credits? The auctioneer tried again, his voice a bit more desperate now. Surely someone can see the value in a former champion? But the traders were already talking among themselves, discussing other business. A few laughed quietly. One pointed at the steed and made a gesture that clearly meant worthless. 200 credits? The auctioneer's enthusiasm was completely gone now. 100. Lily didn't plan to speak. She'd come here just to watch and learn. She had exactly 150 credits to her name, money she'd saved up from her part-time work at the colony. She was supposed to use it for emergency supplies during her trip. But when she looked at Zenith again, at those empty eyes and that broken body, something in her couldn't stay quiet. 100 credits, she heard herself say. The effect was immediate. Laughter rippled through the crowd like a wave. Alien heads turned to look at her, some with amusement, others with something like pity. A Thesian merchant sitting 3 rows ahead twisted around to stare at her. His scales were deep purple, polished and expensive looking. His face split into what might have been a smile, though on a Thesian it looked more threatening than friendly. The human wants to waste credits on dying meat, he said loudly, making sure everyone could hear. More laughter followed. I suppose they'll take anything home as a pet. Another trader chimed in. Better hurry and collect it before it dies right there in the arena. Lily's face burned, but she kept her eyes on Zenith. The old steed hadn't reacted to any of the noise, hadn't moved at all except for the slight trembling in his legs. Sold to the human for 100 credits, the auctioneer declared quickly, clearly eager to move past this embarrassment and get to more profitable lots. Please collect your purchase at the holding area. Lily stood up on shaky legs. She could feel dozens of alien eyes watching her as she made her way down the steps toward the arena floor. The whispers and quiet laughter followed her the whole way. When she reached Zenith, the handlers practically shoved the lead rope at her and walked away without a word. Lily took it carefully, her hands trembling slightly. This close she could see just how bad things really were. The steed's ribs showed through his dull coat. His breathing was shallow and labored. Hey there, she whispered softly. And then something happened that made everything else fade away. Zenith lifted his head. Slowly, painfully, he turned to look at her directly. For just a moment their eyes met. In that brief connection, Lily didn't see a dying animal or a worthless piece of meat. She saw someone who had once been magnificent, someone who had given everything they had and been thrown away when there was nothing left to take. She saw someone who just needed one person to care. "Come on, boy," Lily said quietly, gently tugging on the rope. "Let's get you out of here." Behind them, the auction continued. The next lot was already being announced to eager bidders. But Lily didn't look back. She walked slowly, matching Zenith's painful pace, leading him toward whatever came next. She had no idea what she was going to do. She had no plan, no resources, no experience with Valkyran steeds. All she had was 100 credits less than she'd started with and an old, broken creature that everyone else had given up on. But as they walked together through the station corridors, Lily felt absolutely certain of one thing. She'd made the right choice. "You bought what?" Ben Cooper, the colony's head veterinarian, stood in the doorway of the transport shuttle staring at Lily like she'd lost her mind. "A Valkyran steed," Lily said, trying to sound more confident than she felt. She was gently guiding Zenith down the ramp, taking each step slowly so he wouldn't stumble. "His name is Zenith." Ben walked closer, circling around to get a better look at the creature. His expression went from shock to concerned. "Lily, that's not a steed. That's a liability on 4 legs." He ran a hand through his hair, clearly trying to figure out what to say. "These things eat specialized food that costs a fortune. And he's old. Really old. I'd be surprised if he makes it through the year." "He'll make it," Lily said quietly, continuing to lead Zenith toward the rehabilitation barn. Ben sighed but grabbed the barn door, pulling it open for them. "You know everyone's going to think you're crazy, right? Let them think what they want." They settled Zenith into the largest stall, one that had been empty for months. The steed stood there, barely reacting to his new surroundings. He just stared at the wall with those empty eyes. Lily pulled out her medical scanner and started running it over Zenith's body. The readings made her heart sink. Severe muscle atrophy. Nutritional deficiencies across the board. Dehydration. His organs were functioning but just barely. Ben was right. This was bad. Really bad. But there was something else in the readings. Something that caught her attention. "Ben, look at this," she said, pointing to her datapad screen. "His neural patterns. They're not degraded like they should be for someone his age." Ben leaned in to look. "Huh, that's weird. It's like his brain is fine but his body just gave up." "Maybe his body didn't give up," Lily said slowly. "Maybe he did." Over the next few days, Lily barely left the barn. She'd wake up at 5 in the morning, grab a quick breakfast and head straight to Zenith's stall. Her friends at the colony started joking that she'd moved into the barn permanently. She spent hours reading everything she could find about Valkyran steeds. Most of the information was about racing statistics and breeding programs. Boring stuff about speed records and genetic optimization. But then, late one night, she found something different. It was an old research paper, written by a human anthropologist who'd spent time living with Valkyran handlers. The paper talked about something the racing industry didn't care about. Valkyran steeds bonded for life with their handlers. Not just trained by them. Bonded. It was part of their biology, their psychology. When that bond was respected, they would give everything they had. They would run until their hearts gave out if their handler asked. But when that bond was broken, when they were abandoned or sold off like property, something inside them died. They didn't just get old and slow. They gave up. They stopped trying. Lily sat back in her chair, the datapad trembling in her hands. That's what had happened to Zenith. Someone had bonded with him, used him until he wasn't fast enough anymore and then tossed him aside. And he'd been slowly dying ever since. Not from age. From heartbreak. The next morning she changed everything about how she was caring for him. She stopped treating him like a patient and started treating him like a person. She talked to him constantly while she worked. Just casual conversation, telling him about her day, about the other animals in the barn, about Earth and what it was like growing up on a farm. She brushed his coat every day even though it took over an hour and her arms ached by the end. She researched Valkyran nutrition and completely overhauled his diet. No more of the cheap standard feed. She ordered proper supplements, fresh grains, even tracked down some Valkyran herbs that were supposed to help with recovery. She played music in the barn. Old Earth songs, mostly classical pieces and soft instrumental tracks. She didn't know if Zenith liked music, but it made the barn feel less empty, more alive. For the first week nothing changed. Zenith ate the food she gave him but showed no interest. He let her brush him but didn't react. He was just existing, nothing more. The second week was the same. Lily started to doubt herself. Maybe Ben was right. Maybe she was wasting her time and money on something that couldn't be fixed. But she didn't stop. On the 16th day, Lily was preparing Zenith's evening feed. She was mixing the supplements into his grain, humming along to a piano piece playing from her datapad. She wasn't even paying attention to Zenith. Her mind was on a test she had to take the next day. Then she felt it. Something soft and warm pressing against her shoulder. Lily froze. Slowly she turned her head. Zenith had moved closer. His head was lowered and he was gently nuzzling her shoulder. His eyes, which had been empty and dead for weeks, were looking at her. Really looking at her. "Hey there," she whispered, afraid to move and break the moment. Zenith made a sound. It was quiet, almost like a sigh, but it was the first sound she'd heard him make. "Ben," she called out, not taking her eyes off Zenith. "Ben, get in here." Ben appeared at the stall door looking worried. Then he saw what was happening and stopped dead in his tracks. "I'll be damned," he said softly. "He's actually responding." Lily reached up slowly and placed her hand on Zenith's neck. His coat felt a tiny bit warmer than before. "He just needed someone to see him," she said. For the first time since the auction she felt hope. The message came on a Tuesday morning, right when Lily was in the middle of Zenith's morning grooming routine. Her datapad buzzed with an urgent notification. Official colony business. Report to Captain Melissa Grant's office immediately. Lily's stomach dropped. Official summons were never good news. She gave Zenith a quick pat on the neck. "I'll be right back, boy." The steed had started responding to her voice over the past few days, his ears flicking toward her when she spoke. It was a small thing, but it meant everything. The walk to the administration building felt longer than usual. Lily's mind raced through possibilities. Maybe they were upset about the resources she was using for Zenith. Maybe someone had complained about her spending so much time away from her regular duties. She wasn't prepared for what she found. Captain Grant's office door was open. The captain sat behind her desk, her expression serious and uncomfortable. But what made Lily stop in her tracks was the alien standing beside the desk. He was the Sien, tall and imposing, with deep purple scales that gleamed under the overhead lights. His eyes were cold and calculating, and when he looked at Lily she felt like she was being evaluated like a piece of merchandise. "Miss Hayes," Captain Grant said, gesturing for Lily to enter. "Please close the door and have a seat." Lily did as she was told, her heart pounding. She kept her eyes on the Sien, recognizing something familiar about him. Then it hit her. He'd been at the auction. He was the one who'd laughed at her. "This is trade magnate Cortex," the captain continued. "He's brought a rather serious complaint to my attention." "You have my property," Cortex said bluntly. His translator made his voice sound smooth, but there was an edge to it that made Lily's skin crawl. "Zenith is mine," Lily said immediately, sitting up straighter. "I bought him legally. I have the transaction records." Cortex made a hissing sound that might have been laughter. "A clerical error. A mistake made by an incompetent auction house employee. That creature is a former champion worth 50,000 credits at minimum. They had no authority to sell him at scrap prices." "Then maybe you shouldn't have sent him to auction in the first place," Lily shot back, anger flaring in her chest. "You abandoned him. You let him waste away until he was barely alive." The Thexian scales seemed to darken slightly. "How I manage my assets is none of your concern, human. The fact remains that you acquired valuable property through an administrative error." "He's not property," Lily said. "He's a living being." "Sentiment," Cortex dismissed with a wave of his hand. "How very human." He turned to Captain Grant. "I've already filed the necessary paperwork with the Galactic Commerce Authority. I can have him seized within the hour." "Wait," Captain Grant said, holding up a hand. She looked at Cortex carefully. "You came here in person to reclaim one old racing animal. That seems like a lot of effort for a trade magnate of your status." Cortex's expression didn't change, but Lily saw something flicker in his eyes. "Pride maybe. Or ego." "I don't like losing," he said simply. "And I particularly don't like being made to look foolish by a human child playing veterinarian." Captain Grant leaned back in her chair. "So this is about reputation." "This is about what's mine," Cortex corrected. But the captain had hit a nerve, Lily could tell. An idea formed in Lily's mind. A crazy, probably stupid idea. But it was the only chance she had. "The Centauri circuit," she said suddenly. "The races start in 3 weeks, right?" Cortex turned to look at her, his head tilting slightly. "Yes. What of it?" "Let's make a deal," Lily said, trying to keep her voice steady even though her hands were shaking. "Zenith and I will race. If we can't complete even the first stage, he's yours. No argument, no fight. You can take him back." "Lily," Captain Grant said in a warning tone. But Lily kept her eyes on Cortex. "And if we finish all 5 stages, Zenith stays with me permanently." You drop all claims and you never come near him again. Cortex stared at her for a long moment. Then that hissing laugh came again, louder this time. You want to race a 47-year-old broken-down steed in the Centauri circuit? A course that kills healthy animals in their prime? Those are my terms, Lily said. This is absurd, Cortex said, but he was smiling now, showing too many teeth. Fine. I'll make it even more interesting. When you fail, I take the steed back. But if by some miracle you actually finish all 5 stages, not only can you keep him, I'll pay you 10,000 credits for the entertainment value of watching you try. He leaned closer, and Lily could smell something sharp and chemical coming from him. But understand this, human. When your pet collapses on that course, when he dies because you pushed him beyond what his old body can handle, that blood will be on your hands. Accept my offer now, or I'll have Galactic Commerce Court seize him within the hour. Your choice. Lily looked at Captain Grant. The captain's expression was troubled, but she gave a small nod. It was Lily's decision to make. Every logical part of Lily's brain was screaming at her to stop. The Centauri circuit was infamous. Even young, healthy racing animals often didn't finish. Some died on the course. And Zenith was old, still recovering, nowhere near racing condition. But if she didn't accept, Cortex would take him right now. And Lily knew exactly what would happen then. Zenith would go back to that life of neglect and abandonment. He'd give up again, and this time he wouldn't come back. We'll race, Lily said. Cortex's smile widened. He pulled out his datapad and sent the contract to Captain Grant's terminal. Excellent. I'll see you at the starting line, Miss Hayes. This will be quite entertaining. After he left, Captain Grant let out a long breath. Lily, do you understand what you just agreed to? Yes, ma'am. Ben found her in the barn an hour later. He must have heard the news because he looked pale and worried. Lily, please tell me you're not actually going through with this, he said. The Centauri circuit is a death trap. Young steeds in perfect health don't make it. Zenith will never survive the first stage. Lily was already pulling up training protocols on her datapad, her jaw set with determination. Then we have 3 weeks to prove everyone wrong. Ben stared at her like she'd lost her mind. Maybe she had. But as she looked at Zenith standing in his stall, his eyes now following her movements with interest, she knew she'd made the only choice she could live with. They had 3 weeks to do the impossible. The Centauri circuit staging area was unlike anything Lily had ever seen. Racers from 17 different star systems had gathered, and the noise was overwhelming. Steeds of every imaginable shape and size stood at the starting positions, their bodies gleaming with technological enhancements. Some had cybernetic implants visible under their skin, glowing with power. Others had been genetically modified, their muscles bulging unnaturally large. Lily watched as handlers made last-minute adjustments to their animals. One was checking a neural whip, a device that sent electric pulses directly into the steed's brain to force maximum performance. Another was preparing a chemical injector, loaded with stimulants that would push their steed beyond its natural limits. She looked down at Zenith. He wore a simple leather saddle, old-fashioned reins, and nothing else. No implants, no enhancements, no pain devices, just him and her. Ben had helped her get Zenith to the starting line. Now he stood nearby, looking sick with worry. It's not too late to back out, he said quietly. Yes, it is, Lily replied, gently patting Zenith's neck. The old steed's coat had improved over the past 3 weeks. It wasn't fully glowing yet, but there were hints of luminescence starting to show through. He'd gained weight, his muscles had gotten stronger, and most importantly, his eyes were alive again. The human is really doing this, she heard someone say in the crowd. The universal translators made it easy to understand the various alien languages around her. She'll quit at the first checkpoint, another voice answered with a laugh. If the old thing doesn't collapse before that. The starting horn blared across the arena, a sound that made Lily's heart jump into her throat. The gate opened. 43 racing steeds exploded forward in a blur of speed and power. The ground shook with the thunder of their movement. In seconds they were already hundreds of meters ahead. Zenith started at a steady trot, dead last. Come on, boy, Lily whispered in his ear. Just like we practiced. Nice and steady. The first stage of the Centauri circuit wound through a canyon system made of crystalline rock. The walls shimmered with natural radiation that created a beautiful but deadly environment. The path was narrow and treacherous, with sharp turns and sudden drops. Ahead of them, Lily could already see the leading racers disappearing around a bend. Some were going dangerously fast, their handlers pushing them hard with neural whips. She heard the electric crack of the devices echoing off the canyon walls. They'd been racing for maybe 20 minutes when Lily started seeing the first casualties. A young Draxian steed had collapsed on the path, its legs giving out from being pushed too hard. Its handler was screaming at it, hitting it with the neural whip, but the animal couldn't get up. Medical teams were rushing toward them. Further ahead, another steed had stumbled and fallen, throwing its rider. The creature was breathing heavily, foam coming from its mouth. Chemical stimulants, Lily realized. They'd burned out its system. "Easy, Zenith," she murmured, guiding him around the fallen animals. "We're not in a hurry." Zenith seemed to understand. He picked his way carefully through the dangerous terrain, his older instincts telling him where to step, when to slow down. The younger steeds were faster, but they were reckless. Zenith was wise. They crossed the first checkpoint in 31st place. Zenith was tired, his sides heaving, but his legs were steady. His eyes were focused. He wasn't giving up. The medical team at the checkpoint looked shocked to see them. "The old one made it?" one of them said in disbelief. Up in the observation deck, Lily knew Cortex was watching. She hoped he was starting to worry. Stage 2 was worse. The course shifted to a marshland where the gravity fluctuated wildly. One moment everything felt normal, the next moment it felt like trying to move through water. The ground itself seemed to pull at them, trying to drag them down. More steeds collapsed here. Lily watched in horror as 3 animals went down from heart failure, their systems overloaded by the chemical stimulants their handlers had given them. The handlers just moved on to backup animals, not even looking back. But Lily guided Zenith carefully around the worst patches. When the gravity surged, she let him rest. When it eased, they moved forward. She trusted his instincts, his experience. He'd run courses like this before, decades ago. His body remembered even if it was slower now. 24th place at checkpoint 2. By stage 3 something had changed. The pattern was becoming clear to everyone watching. The young, enhanced steeds were dropping like flies. Their handlers had pushed them too hard, relied too much on technology and chemicals. They treated them like machines instead of living beings. But Zenith just kept going. Steady. Determined. And for the first time in years, his coat began to shimmer with faint bioluminescence. The warrior patterns of his youth were coming back. 15th place. The crowd had stopped laughing. In fact, they'd started paying attention. Real attention. Stage 4 was a brutal mountain climb. The path zigzagged up steep terrain, the air getting thinner with each meter of elevation. Only 12 racers remained in the competition. The others had either quit or been medically disqualified. Lily could feel Zenith's muscles working beneath her, bunching and releasing with each step. He was stronger than he'd been in years. This wasn't about the enhancements or the drugs. This was about heart. About having a reason to try. "You're doing amazing," she whispered to him. "I'm so proud of you." Zenith's ears flicked back, listening to her voice. Then he pushed harder, climbing faster. Not because she was forcing him. Not because of pain or chemicals. But because he wanted to. Because he was running for the human who had seen him when everyone else looked away. 6th place. As they crossed the checkpoint, Lily heard the crowd for the first time. They were cheering. Not mocking. Not laughing. Actually cheering. The announcer's voice boomed across the arena. "Unbelievable. The oldest racer in Centauri circuit history has just placed 6th. The human and her Valkyran steed are defying every expectation." Lily looked up at the observation deck. She couldn't see Cortex's face from this distance, but she could imagine his expression. One more stage to go. One more stage to prove that compassion was stronger than cruelty. That treating someone with dignity and respect could achieve what all the technology in the galaxy couldn't. One more stage to save Zenith's life. 3 racers lined up at the starting gate for the final stage. The crowd had gone completely silent. You could feel the tension in the air like electricity. On the left stood a Crexian champion, sitting proud on a genetically perfect steed that cost more than a small spaceship. In the middle, Vex's personal racer sat mounted on another expensive, enhancement-loaded creature. And on the right there was Alex on Old Zenith. The final course was brutal. It cut straight through an electromagnetic storm field that scrambled almost every piece of technical equipment. The expensive neural whips that the other racers relied on? Dead. The chemical injectors pumped full of performance drugs? Completely malfunctioned. All the fancy technology that the aliens had spent fortunes on suddenly became worthless pieces of metal and plastic. The racers were left with nothing but the bond they had with their steeds. Nothing else could help them now. The starting signal flashed and they were off. The Crexian champion immediately started having problems. His mount was confused, scared even. Without the neural whip telling it exactly what to do, the creature didn't know how to respond. The champion yanked on the reins, shouted commands, tried everything he knew. But he'd never actually learned to communicate with his mount. He'd always just used technology to force it to obey. Within the first 2 minutes he fell so far behind that he was practically out of the race. Now it was just between Vex Racer and Alex. The storm raged around them. Lightning cracked across the purple sky. The electromagnetic pulses made the air feel thick and heavy. Both remaining racers pushed forward, leaning low over their mounts' necks. Vex Racer was skilled, no doubt about that. His creature was younger, faster, and had been trained by the best money could buy. But something was different about Zenith. As they raced through the storm, Alex kept talking to him. Not shouting commands or demanding obedience. Just talking the way you talk to an old friend. "You're doing great, boy. I know you're tired, but we're almost there." Zenith's ears flicked back, listening to every word. "Just a little more. That's all I'm asking. Just give me a little more." And then something incredible happened. Zenith's bioluminescent patterns, the ones that had been dim and faded for years, suddenly blazed bright across his coat. They were warrior markings, the kind that marked him as a champion back when he was young. Patterns that hadn't shown in decades were now glowing like fire across his dark skin. It wasn't drugs making those patterns appear. It wasn't genetic modification or technological enhancement. It was pure choice. Zenith was choosing to run, choosing to fight, choosing to show everyone what he really was. He surged forward with everything he had left. His hooves thundered against the track. His breathing came hard and fast, but his stride was strong. For those final moments, he wasn't an old, broken-down creature. He was a warrior again. They crossed the finish line 4 seconds after Vex Racer. Second place. Not first, but second. The entire arena fell completely silent. Thousands of aliens sat frozen in their seats, trying to process what they'd just witnessed. Then, like a dam breaking, the crowd absolutely erupted. The noise was deafening. Beings from dozens of different species were on their feet, cheering and stomping and making whatever sounds their species made when excited. Alex slid off Zenith's back and immediately wrapped both arms around his neck. The old steed's sides were heaving like bellows, sweat dripping from his coat, but his eyes were clear and bright. Truly alive in a way they hadn't been in years. Vex walked over slowly, his datapad already out. His face was unreadable, but he pulled up the contract without being asked. The agreement is clear. He finished the race. He's yours now. He transferred the 10,000 credits with a few taps, then stood there for a moment just looking at Zenith. Finally, without another word, he turned and walked away. Someone in the crowd had recorded the entire race. By the next morning, the video was spreading across colonial networks like wildfire. By the end of the week, billions of beings across the galaxy had watched it. News channels analyzed it. Scientists studied it. And most importantly, people started asking questions. Other humans began reaching out to Alex, asking about the methods used. Within days, other worthless creatures started finding their way to human handlers. A young colonist named Jennifer took in an elderly Draxian hound that had been scheduled for termination. Another human, David, adopted not 1 but 3 rejected mining beetles that nobody else wanted. The movement was growing. And the aliens were starting to notice. 3 months later, Alex received an invitation to speak at the Galactic Agricultural Summit, the biggest gathering of agricultural specialists in known space. Standing at that podium with Zenith beside her, his coat now shimmering with full warrior patterns that would never fade again, Alex spoke to representatives from hundreds of worlds. "You looked at Zenith and saw a broken tool," Alex said, voice steady and clear. "We looked at him and saw a living being who deserved respect. You calculated profit margins and efficiency ratings. We calculated worth and dignity. And that's not weakness. That's not foolish sentimentality like you think. That's exactly why humans will always find value in places where you see nothing but garbage." A Crexian delegate stood up, his voice challenging. "But your methods are inefficient. They're slower. Less profitable. How can you justify that?" Alex smiled. "We didn't win that race through superior technology. We didn't win through genetic perfection or expensive enhancements. We won through compassion, through genuine connection. And in the end, compassion and respect beat every expensive enhancement you threw at us." The room fell quiet. They had no response to that. The numbers didn't lie. Zenith spent his remaining 6 years living peacefully at the human colony. He sired 3 strong foals who carried his warrior spirit in their blood. Alex became the official galactic ambassador for ethical creature treatment, traveling to different worlds and teaching others what humans had always known. The term, the human factor, entered common use among traders and merchants, Acknowledgement that humans had this strange ability to find worth beyond simple numbers and calculations. On the day Zenith finally passed, Alex was there beside him, holding his great head gently in both hands. His eyes found hers one last time, and in them was something unmistakable. Gratitude. Contentment. He'd been truly seen. He'd been valued for who he was. And in doing so, he'd shown the entire galaxy what humans really were.